Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Today is Tuesday, March 24th. I'd like to ask for a call to order.
Mr. Cahaleen.
Present.
Mr. Quadro.
Present.
Dr. Spencer Robinson.
She'll be here.
Mayor Ciara.
Here.
Dr. Bonner.
Here.
Thank you. Can you do the pledge for me?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to read the mission statement. Smith Vocational Agricultural High School is to provide students with an education that equips them to be professional adults with a high level of expertise, knowledge, and competence in their field. Creative and impactful members of their chosen vocations in their communities and effective communicators who value diversity of thought, experience, and cultural background. I'd like to ask this evening, is there any participation from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Quadro?
Sure. Let's see. I attended the Alumni Association meeting last week and also the Alumni Hall of Fame honors program inductee thing that Mr. Bianca, I assume, is going to mention in his report.
Not yet, because we're waiting to hear about the other details of it before we make anything official.
Okay, I just thought you might bring it up. And the Alumni Association is really starting to gain steam and move forward. And they've organized their dinner Saturday, June 13th, I believe, and they're getting more involvement. Let's see, what else do I have? I think that's it.
Am I in time for board announcements?
We're getting
I'm
ready
ready
for
for
it.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Moving. And this takes longer. Let's do that right now. Okay. You can have one. The pledge was already said. Yep. All right. Because you won't be surprised. Come on. I have CES updates. All right, I have more updates from the Collaborative for Educational Services. I'm pleased to report that the board successfully negotiated a 3-year contract with Dr. Bonner. I'm very much looking forward to working with her in that capacity beginning on July 1st. Sorry. I also have to report that Karen Reuter, who is the CES Deputy Director and was serving as Interim Executive Director, elected after the January 20th board meeting not to continue in that role. Therefore, we formed a search committee for an interim executive director. They reviewed applications and brought forward 2 strong candidates for consideration by the full board at last Wednesday's meeting. We selected Maureen Benenda for the position, who recently served for 2 years as the interim superintendent in the East Hampton Public Schools. She actually started at CES yesterday. It's my belief that she will be able to make some progress, even in 3 months, to foster a healthier culture at CES that I hope will set Dr. Bonner up for a successful start to her tenure. I'd like to add that it's been my great pleasure to work with other CES board members who at our meetings represent 24 member districts throughout Franklin and Hampshire counties. They're smart, knowledgeable, experienced, principled, and kind. So even though it's been a lot of work over the last number of months, and certainly with discordant elements, I found it to be ultimately rewarding because of the other school committee members.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the February 10th, 2026 Board of Trustees meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Here in school, Scotland.
I'd like to introduce our department head in auto body, Mr. Chris Richards, for a short presentation. You'll see a presentation on the smartboard behind all of you.
Thank you all for having me. I'm Christopher Richards, I'm department head in collision repair. I've been there department head 2 years. This is my 5th year here at Smith, 5th year teaching students. All right, go ahead.
I'm going to unshare from Zoom. There we go.
This is who we got. You met me here. I'm the department head, and I've been blessed, significantly blessed, to have Jake McCartney come in last year as an instructor. Him and I have over 50 years experience in the trade. He grew up in body shops, family body shop, family body shop, family body shop. Ours is actually the most well-equipped body shop that he's ever worked in. So he's never been in a heated paint booth before. He's got a lot of luxuries here, and that we're also blessed to have. He fits in really well with the classroom. If this is the only minute I can talk about him, he fits in so well with the classroom. He can just run it. He can talk about it. He uses the whiteboard very well. Kids love him. I'm a little jealous of his relationship. He bonds fast with the kids, if I'm honest, but wonderful addition. I cannot say enough about Mr. McCartney. So I want to pass this around. I want you all to take a look at this thing. This is our exploratory project, if that's the first thing I got on the list. I think we put a lot of money into exploratory. We sort of make it fun. Everybody who's been through has seen it. That's a panel. If you look on the back, we put 3 dents in it. And we cram it in the 5 days to get the dent repair. They actually hammer out 2 of them fully the way some body techs need to do it. The middle one is filled in with a filler to get that proper shape back. We get those out of Romeo, Michigan, made in America, for about $8 a piece. And we burn through a lot of them. That's our 1 week project. For our 1 day project, we just make dents. We put the filler in there. We get them sanding it. I think for us, we introduce them to the dirty part. And if they're willing to come back, they can do the paint job. So that goes through primer, sealer, edge primer. And that's essentially 2-tone custom paint. The kids can take whatever they want, a lot of choices with colors. It effectively teaches them how to fix the dent on Mom's Civic or minivan. How to, if you can do that, you can do a 2-tone motorcycle paint job and make a lot of money if the tape's right and the lines are right. And, we put a lot of effort into it, and I think it's working for us. Exploratory, I really think we're winning on this one. The numbers, we just put a lot of enthusiasm in it. We make it sound fun and cool, and I think we got it. But moving on from that, we get our permanent freshmen. We start with hand tools. We move on to power tools, where it's instructor demonstrates, student demonstrates, and they work from there towards proficient. In 9th grade, they learn car washing, which sort of goes with the vehicle respect. You got to understand how to not damage the vehicle while it's here, how to just respect the vehicle. Tools can't bang into it. It's not just better, but we want it clean. Clean has a definition, and if we're not there, we're not there. That's important. And 9th grade ends with a fender competition. Essentially, they get a fender that was damaged in transit, maybe not good enough for a body shop. These people donate them by the truckload out of New Jersey for us. That's something we started. And they fix whatever damage it came with, dropped, twisted, dented. We'll put more dents in it. We have them fix it. As of last year, we started putting a cut in it. So instead of waiting till 10th grade to do some welding, there's a little bit of trigger time. They're all scared to death of the lightning, but we get them welding and understand that this isn't going to hurt you. You can hold it and weld it. This helps over. It's just a small cut, but it helps overcome the fear. Sophomores is essentially all welding. We do get into how to protect the vehicle while we're welding it. There's actually 2 butt joints and 2 other welds. Those are the 4 welds they're going to do on a vehicle. They learn how to do those proficiently. And in fact, what we do is we put them in a vise, we destroy it until it breaks, and then judge how it broke. So that's how we know, will this hold up at a crash? Really what we're looking for. Gas metal arc welding is really just a triggered pull MIG welding. It's very easy. It's good for the thin sheet metal that we're working on. It's not super suited for large projects. You know, maybe different welders in ag mech. This is what we use. We focus on a little 12-volt electronic stuff, lights and fuses, and really the basics. The students really, most of them come in with no knowledge whatsoever. And that's why we do start with the hand tools. Whether or not you grew up with tools, we're finding that many students have no tools at home. Like, do you have screwdrivers, ratchets? No. That's okay. We start everybody at the same space, at the same pace. Juniors just starting to grow. They get into buff and polishing, sanding fresh paint. Meanwhile, though, they were spraying every year. There's always a little bit of spraying, a little bit of, we call it gun time. Because it's just very awkward until you do it more and more and more until it just becomes a little, your arm loosens up. But they get into buff and polishing, sanding fresh paint, suspension, steering, brakes. 11th grade is a hard focus on employability because, you know, that's where you already know this, that's where the mock interviews come in. You know, we're talking eye contact, handshakes, presence, don't scuff your feet walking into the interview. Just present yourself, sell yourself. That's important. And that goes with that, you know, punctuality, all the rest of it. Seniors, we've been painting off and on, you know, the whole time, but now we really focus into the science of refinishing, the minutia of the chemicals, the more chemistry of it, spray technology, what these guns do. Not me handing you the gun that's ready to spray, but what each knob does, why this gun doesn't look the same as this one, what's legal in Massachusetts and what's not. That's very important. Color theory, because the color literally never matches the car. We might have to tint it, make it darker, lighter, sparkly, more, less. There's a whole lot to go with color theory. Detailing and delivery. We go from car cleaning to like detail, like, okay, you cleaned it, but no. Detail is a higher level. We charge more for it out there versus our $15 car wash versus our $130 detail package. Just increased expectations. What else are we going to get out of it, you know? Seniors are making patch panels. I'll give them one of those early fenders. We're going to cut a piece out of it, and you're going to make the lip. You're going to make the curve, whatever the spot is, they're going to do that. And seniors focus hard on entrepreneurship. We have what we call the Build Your Own Body Shop project, where it used to be $1 million. Now I'm giving you $2 million because $1 million doesn't go very far anymore. So we find properties. We're on Zillow. We're looking for commercial properties. Some that are set up for this, some that are not. You might pay more for a body shop that has a booth, or you might have to budget into your $2 million the booth, the mixing room, the fire suppression. You know, you might have to build it. And we're in the middle of that as we speak. And then we want to, you know, transition them into productive people in the vision of a graduate, professional, impactful communicators. Our vision of a graduate, essentially, I'm not so sure I invented this on campus, but I came in hard, whether it was like, we're not going to have cell phones out or I was going to leave. And me and Mr. Brooks pulled hard together to come up with some kind of system and some kind of plan. It still evolves a little bit, but essentially there's no cell phones in my shop, in the classroom, or on the floor. We're safety minded. I got safety glasses on most every minute in the shop. I think for those of you who have visited, know that there's been some improvements there. We want to be punctual and play with customers. For impactful, we want to be skilled in the trade. You know what I mean? Too much of co-op kids going out and then coming back. So I want to make sure that we have the skills. There's so many we try to touch on. That repeatability is my hard part. I think I struggle with like repeating the same things. Like we've done it, we learned it, we move on, and then we forget. So we keep trying to repeat things, skilled in the trade. We want to be community minded. We try to do whatever we can for the community. We're blessed with the environment and the length of time we've been here. I know that over at I just been to some other schools and talked with other collision teachers. How do you get live work? It's like, man, I turn it away about every single day. I spend a lot of time on email responding to, can you do this? Can you do that? Somebody right now wants a brand new Ford Transit, a big one, painted a whole new color. Brand new, they just took delivery. Just estimating that is hard. So we're doing everything we can for the community. We really want to just throw it out there. The car washes, the walk-ins, just everybody knows we're here. Everybody knows Smith School, and we've been there a long time, and we're trying to keep it going. You know, we want them to be service-oriented. The whole country essentially is becoming service-oriented, so we better play our role if we're going to fit. I suppose as communicators, we work hard on the resumes. We want to be good job seekers. We're still working on that, you know, getting the nerve to go into a place, the nerve to call back, the nerve to go in again. Just introduce yourself. The soft skills, we do deal with customer contact. So a lot of times it essentially starts 11th grade. 11th grader is going to do the estimate. So the 11th grader will, I'll introduce the customer after I've said what we need to be said to the 11th grader or a senior, and they'll take the info. They have the app on their phones, 11th grade and up. They have an app on their phone that can scan the car by their barcode, puts all the info in. They just get the name and the email and phone number. And it's real important that we know the knowledge of the trade terms. I feel like in my industry, that's how you can get a job that way, just by using the right terms. And as far as communicators, if you're using the wrong words, you're not getting the job. For numbers right now, we've been growing for sure. 9th grade, we filled up. We got the 12 students, 41% non-traditional. We seem to be doing okay with females as far as being non-traditional in the industry. 10th graders, we had 12. We went to 10. We just went back to 11. 11th grade, we're at 10. It keeps flipping. And then 12th is our small year. We only have 6. But I feel like we're getting out of that. And if I could predict the future a little bit, I feel like we are growing. As far as interest, numbers, I believe we had pretty high interest this year. Am I correct? As far as exploratory choice, we were high on the list, if not top, but we were up there versus years past. And we're doing well with non-traditional females in the shop. Overall numbers were 81.25 capacity out of the 48 we can have. Co-op at the moment, this number reflects the young lady who came in today and said she got a co-op job. Not out there yet, but accepted. Paperwork's in process, so we have placed out of 11 to 12 students, all of them. We got 37%, that's better than it has been, for sure. These are our co-op kids, we're now at 6. I do think that's okay. I'd love to see more, knowing that we only have 6 seniors. We should have 7. Young man got told today that they can't offer him 30 hours a week. So the co-op position they were working on and he lost today. The slide reflects this. So these are at, you know, and we're all local. Tommy Carr is around the corner. Full Tilt is in Hatfield. Fort Hills in Amherst. All wonderful, wonderful people. Anderson's up at Greg's, all doing essentially the same things. Zaylee, living in Turner's Falls, found a shop out there who will work with her. She takes a bus in the rain to Cartelli's. They do a lot of Franklin kids, but I met the guy. He actually remembered my wife from the industry. You know, took her on. And massive success story for those who know. And Carson, second one at Tommy Carr. Connor actually started yesterday. Had an amazing report this morning as far as how it went. And Carson already can paint really, really well. His father does, so he's going to be just fine. So we got 6 at the moment. This year we placed 5 kids at the district level with medals. That's just this year. We did 5 or 6 last year. Big numbers for us. This is big as far as even school wide. These 2 are in automotive refinish. It's just going to be like painting techniques and a lot of color theory. Just big stuff that goes with that. Abby is going to do dead repair, welding, hammer dolly, plastic repair, plastic welding, and tab repair. And damage estimation is not popular in the state. It's difficult to get age level there with all the parts of the car and the order of operations and all that. Salem went last year. I got Gabby in this year. These are the kids that are going to states in Marlboro visit. So these are the kids we're taking this year. We're proud of them. We do everything we can for the community. I wish it was more. I think the word's getting out though. Do we all know Monty's March? March for the Food Bank. When I started here, the number we were getting at was $5.25, earned. I saw that they had the goal at 8. They went over the million for sure. Second March was added in Pittsfield at Hot Plate Brewery. Please patronize this lady, amazing, woman-owned. I took a visit out there, wonderful place for them to just jump in and do this for the community, for what they know about the march. I forget how many years it's been going. It's a long run, and we all know it. We just took on PD this year, just based on the amount of time that they've been in automotive. It was like, oh, you guys are over here too. So we've been doing details for them, one after the other. A couple collision repairs. That last windstorm a week ago had some damage on a vehicle. We're fixing that. Lots of detail batches, a couple collision repair jobs, 3 or 4 by now, and we're getting a weird little agreement with them to where they keep the labor costs down. And the parking authority, we've been there ever since I've known. We're doing about 700 meters. At this point, I'm losing track of the number, but every time we give them to Mr. Bateski, more come back. And they're very rusty, they're nasty, they're 3 parts that have to be gray. And go on to the next slide. We got more of that coming up. The March for the Food Bank, it's huge every year. You guys know that. Next. I don't have a lot of PD. I broke my cell phone. I had more photos, but I'm on a different phone now with limited photos here. So we got a lot of PD stuff going on. They don't have a motor pool that takes care of them. I understand. They're all really, really gross on the inside. So they're so Dennis Mr. Lipdeck is very grateful for what we're doing. I'm not feeling like they're all perfect, but we're working at it, and customer satisfaction is very high right now. They're just pumping them in. As soon as one leaves, another one shows up. Next. That's what the parking meters look like when we're done. We've done some parking bollards. In the past, we've painted some black. Those ones where I think the gentleman down there fabricate these. They make these, and then they bring them to us fresh steel, not rusted yet. We get right on them with the proper coats. These things are painted on the bottom side as well. I think these are done in a way they will last and make us look good. And the colors we choose, y'all have seen the tops of the parking meters. Some are red, blue, black, and the library has orange, I believe. We choose classic car colors because they let us. They just want an orange. We'll pick the colors. So the yellow is literally the Transformer Bumblebee yellow. This is a Destroyer gray from the new Hellcats. And, it fits what they need. We choose a cool car color, and the kids enjoy that. Just this year, Maffrey stepped in and said, hey, how about we do some cool things? And it's hard to schedule sometimes, but it's amazing. They let me choose a new vehicle off a list. And I think I got kids who like the Hondas, so I picked the Honda Civic. These are total losses that don't look that bad. Total loss, and we can repair it if we want. If there was some funding to buy the parts, I'm not sure if I can get them to buy the parts. If I can do the frame pull, if I had the better equipment to pull the frame, we could fully repair the car and let them sell it and keep this thing going. That's the intention. But right now, he lets us tear this vehicle apart. We can rip the rear suspension off it, put it back together. There's a lot of cool hands-on stuff. We can take the inner door panels off. They're just going to sell this car, and they don't mind us holding on to it for a year. It'll depreciate that much, and we can get a lot of gain out of it. We can take the doors apart, get that door handle off, and even someone my age, we've done a lot of Honda Civics and teardowns and stuff, but that new one, I might not have seen one that I haven't been in industry, So for me to see this one, we can get these newer vehicles and really get to identify that front structure. The bumpers tore apart. and being hit so hard, we can see a lot that you just can't see over the hood on a decent car. You know, a lot of visual stuff we can talk about. It's pretty cool just to have it sitting up on the frame rack. They invited us to insurance auto auctions. Somebody I used to work with in my career. They do that's where all your total losses go. There's a place in Lancaster. We went to Shirley with these kids, and every car, I forget, 5 acres or more, all total losses. Pretty interesting to see as a student perspective. And they had a big a section with like supercars and premium cars, barely touched, but totaled out. It's really cool to see. Safe Light Auto Glass was in, I think, last week. They brought in Safe Light. It was such a thorough demonstration. They had students helping on that. Just the process of taking out a glass, putting a glass in. They were hard selling themselves as employees, benefit packages, paying what they pay, starting at $24 an hour. Not a bad route. It's one of the routes you can go out of collision repair. And what we haven't done yet, which is scheduled, forget the date, we got scheduled. The Mass Police, State Police is going to come in. Apparently, these cars have black boxes that can tell you every event of the whole life of the car, especially leading up to this total loss accident. So when you say, "Oh, I hit the brakes," and I say, "No, you didn't," they can tell how fast you're going, the G forces, the yaw, the angles. This thing tells everything, and I'm about to learn a whole bunch more. We're gonna pull the black box out of the vehicle, and he's gonna plug this thing into his whatever he's bringing, put it on the smart board, and he's going to show the class what he can see. I'm very interested to see it. It's coming. Go ahead. This was our field trip. Literally the only picture I can come up with, but we got to, and they had it set up for us where they had a total loss here. There was one or two further out, spaced out. A lot of space for us to walk around. They encouraged us to go and look it over. They had questions and they were throwing out merch for correct answers. Pizza party. It was a really cool visit. Insurance auto watch. Go ahead. Safe Light, this was last week. They had students, the student was running the crank to run the wire around that cuts it out. These are inventions. Safe Light is a little bit special. They've invented a lot of these products to make the job ergonomic so the tech doesn't get hurt over time. Windshields are thick and heavy sometimes. The windshield is a structural part of the vehicle. It definitely holds in a passenger airbag. That airbag goes up against the glass. Talked about all the minutia, what goes in and what makes this thing stick. Can we put it over the fresh paint if we have fresh paint? What do we got to do? Does it have a primer? How to cut it? They went over everything and had some student involvement. It was a real cool down day. And I just got pictures of student work here. We got plasma cutters. We can cut metal. We can make patch panels. The kids can weld this in. This would be ground down further, but that's textbook perfect. You know, small little welds keep us from warping the panel. We got a lot of kids who can paint. The collision cars, that's a 23 Elantra. Did the whole side. You know, if I'm there, sometimes if I'm not, Mr. Percy's car is painted without me. I didn't even know he was doing it, and it just come out very nice. So, you know, the students can prep these, take these. You know, this is a real world experience right here on a real car. And new stuff too. This is a parking authority truck, so they'll bring us stuff. We get the parts at Marcotte. They pay that invoice. We were able to change this. Feel like that repair was around $200 as far as just our labor. And they buy the headlight and the fender. They smash it up. They say, "Can you do it?" We've had a couple that were humongous and we just couldn't. And they went to Greg's. But we can, you know, if there's a lot we can do as long as it's not structural. This was a student bumper, if I recall. And, you know, the kids can match it and paint it. There's one of those patch panels from this year. That was a tough one. It's looking good. It's about ready for paint at this stage right now. Both of those kids had to co-op. You know, we're talking a 2024 vehicle. I think this was a 22 or a 23, just, you know, wet sanding and polishing the scratch that they got in the parking lot. And these are things we can do. Essentially what you do is you cover that with the color. clear coat the whole thing. That's what we mean by blending. We're not gonna paint that whole panel. I want it to match the door. I want it to match the hood. We put the black right here, clear coat the whole thing. See you later. Do you have any questions for me?
How proud are you of your program and the educational experience of your students?
I'm actually very proud. I'm so proud of how this goes, and my feeling of just being here that my wife quit her job at 25 years and joined an elementary school. Just to see how I come home, how it feels. It's a lot of work at home. It's stressful. It's emotional, but I'm very proud. And I feel like the numbers are climbing. We can only do more. The donation level that we get in our shop is high. I got a new paint mixing system coming in very soon. We're asking and we're receiving.
It's so impressive, every element that you've shared with us tonight. I've been in the shop and been impressed by your leadership for sure, and the culture of the shop. It's visible. You can see those 3 elements of the vision of a graduate that you have put into practice in your shop. You can see it.
Thank you very much. Engagement is important for us. Engagement, I think when I got here, the engagement was low. 21, 22. The engagement was so low, I didn't want to stay. And it's like, we're changing this or I'm leaving. And the gentleman that was with us, Mike Brooks, he was like, what do you got? Let's do it. And so I can't take all the credit. Mike Brooks helped me start this. And as soon as it was mine, and we're just sticking to what we don't have a lot of rules, but we try to be firm with cell phones and we do okay. Engagement's high.
I do have one more last short question about when the students come back from co-op, so they lose their co-op spot. I'm just hearing you say you're already engaging with the co-op placements, but do you have like an exit interview with the co-op placement person to understand more about?
Absolutely. There's a lot of communication as to why Johnny lost the co-op, for sure.
I'm sure that
I feel like it's
informs
common
your
all over.
instruction.
Yep.
Yeah.
The last one, the gentleman who started yesterday at Tommy Car, this was his second round. And he had to wait a while this year to try again. Very, very shy, very nervous, very anxious. But it was like, we got to get back on the horse. We got to get this done. And he was a confusing one. He was working his first co-op at a place I worked at. Family friends. My wife worked there for 25 years. So the guy overextends for me for sure. And it was, what's wrong? And he's just like, he's not motivated. He's slow. He's got that pace that they get here. And I work hard to push these kids to be faster, but I'm learning where the middle is. I can't push too much. I'm just trying to oscillate a little, and there's a middle where, because you got to know that like my industry, you're expected to do, it's got to be fast. If you got a job to do, it's not the job for the day like they might think it is here. So exit interviews are big. I get a lot of communication with them. But to the point, I might try getting an exit interview with a kid, with a student. I mean, we talk about it, but maybe something more formal.
Yeah.
What went wrong in your opinion? Because that one was like, oh no, sort of do.
I want to compliment you. I once you walked through the door the first day, and I've watched what you've done over there, and the feedback that I get from the public that have been here and in your shop, and how they were taken care of not only by you, but you have done that handoff to the student. And people are so impressed that you do that you allow that student to talk to the customer and build a rapport. And the nervousness of the student gets overcome by the person engaging in the conversation. And I got to compliment you for that. That's a whole step in itself. As you said, when you do that resume and the kids go out, and when they don't have their cell phone out and they're not dragging their feet and they're looking people in the eye, that's a whole training that is going on pre them meeting about a shop owner or manager. So you know what to do. You're training them and you're handing that off, and I compliment you.
Thank you. One of the things I like to do, and I got to get the students involved a little bit more than it. Sometimes I just go into autopilot mode. I talk to them. I get some information. But But I'm never afraid right now you can tell somebody's got a newer car. They're not even sure if this is the right place. How's this going to turn out? There's a lot of apprehension. We're in a high risk sort of game that we're playing over there with the dollar values of the item we're working on. This isn't a bookcase in wood, So I don't mind though bringing them. A lot of times it's like, well, come on in, and sometimes they just see these students. They're engaged, they're working, they're taking care of cars, they're working on this, that. At least the engagement level looks like we're doing it, and I can get to a lot of customers there.
A brand new Ford Transit being completely repainted, that is a high level of trust and confidence in your shop.
I'm hoping that they might have had a referral. I don't know. It's a $60,000 vehicle, and the estimate is at least $5,000 right now. And I emailed today saying that it's probably going to be 7, 8. Any part that we break, take it off, you're going to have to replace. It's fine. And this individual literally wants it painted in a color, the exact paint code that it's available in. And they were starting it before they took delivery. I don't know. This one may be pushed aside. I just don't think we can do it in the time period here.
But it's a lot of confidence in your shop.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I just want to thank you for taking care of the city's busted and dirty vehicles and equipment. Thank you.
I feel like we can do so much more. We have something ongoing right now with the Department of Arts and Culture. So waiting on, I guess, graphics is designing a wrap. We're going to wrap that vehicle. There's still so many more things that we do, and I'll take anything I can get. We've done a one wheel for the fire department. I think there's more we can do. There must be more departments I don't know about. Literally anything you want shiny and colorful, we can do. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No student rep tonight? Okay. Anything on that side? Probably in your report. So if you want to go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to congratulate and thank Chris. He's done a ton of work. They are a great team in there. And yeah, I think he's been through a little bit. He's learned a lot. He's completely committed to learning the craft of being a teacher. And that's conversations I've had with him a lot. And he's all in on learning that skill set and applying what he knows from the industry into here. So thank you very much. Well done. So enrollment's 589. On admissions, our application season's ended. So we're going to continue to obtain tuition forms through April 1st. Applications will be they're in the process of being double checked, and we're preparing for the lottery. So that lottery, the first lottery that we'll ever run, it'll take place on April 15th. One of the things you may notice if you look at March 15th at the close of application season, you'll see we have 280 complete applications. If you look back at other times, you would have seen that I was reporting over 300 applications. So we did have 11 students pull their applications now prior to the lottery. And then we have 15 that are basically uncompleted. So they're incomplete applications. And then a few others that came in after the fact. But so right now, if you go back from that number, that's why you see the 280. It is at the end of application season, you can see through March last year, we had 320. If you go through the end of application season, we are 21% short compared year over year. So we're asking questions behind the scenes, trying to understand if it's a shortened season. Is there a reason for that? Do we have to do more advertisement that maybe we began backing off of because our numbers were really high? So our team, after we run through the lottery, we're going to have further conversation around what do we think were contributing factors to why the completed applications are lower than it is. But again, that will run with the company that we've been working with, that we contracted with, GoToCTE. They're going to be running the lottery on our behalf. We'll be recording it that day and putting it up on our website, our link through our website to their system. They are the underwriters of the lottery, so they've done this now for several years. The proprietary software that's been designed for it's a former superintendent, vocational superintendent that created the system. Works with, I think, 25 or so career tech schools in Mass. So they're pretty much the preeminent ones.
We are one of the last ones. There's actually us and 2 other schools on April 15th, and that'll end the lottery season for what we're told for all the vocational schools. So again, they kind of run all the behind the scenes stuff. They certify it, and once we know that nothing went wrong, that's when it'll all get posted and shared out with students. Again, we'll be running the lottery for Northampton students to rank them so that the top 30 will be offered seats. And then those students outside of Northampton, tuition students, will run that lottery to allocate the first 120 seats out. And that's how we'll get 150 in the current admissions policy. So skills here.
If I can just chime in,
Yeah.
just for the board information. So Destiny reached out to me last Friday. We received the official approval of a waiver for this 1 year only. So we will, as Mr. Bianca said, we'll have a lottery for the Northampton applicants for the 30, and then the lottery for the non-resident students down to the 20. So that is locked in for this school year only.
And did they say just this year? Like they were explicit about it?
Correct.
Will the 27 remaining Northampton students be added to the pool that includes non-residents?
So there'll be 2 separate wait lists. There'll be the Northampton wait list and then the non-resident.
So the non-residents will get the remaining slots, and then there'll be wait lists for any enrollment offers that are declined.
Correct, for both lotteries.
Gotcha,
So
so
we'll drop it.
Northampton will only ever have 30.
Correct.
I do want to thank Lauren Devine, who's our guidance department head, and she's also the admissions counselor. So she's done a lot of work behind the scenes with other staff, and Ethan Percy, our assistant principal, has been overseeing that with her with the admissions, and they've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. It's a completely new system for us, not just a new process, but going to CTE is a completely new system. So a lot of the automatic emails had to be built, a lot of the things, just adding the different schools that we work with and all the work behind the scenes. So they've been doing a great job for us. Skills USA, Chris referenced it in his presentation. So we had 18 total students that medaled, and as you heard him say, 5 of the 18 were his. So pretty high, almost 30%. You can go through and see which categories that those students were in. The gold and the silver students move on to the state competition. And in this case, also Tommy Nutting from Criminal Justice is the only bronze qualifier. So pending your questions, that is my report. Yes, sir.
Internet of Things,
Yes.
Chandler Woodward, what is?
Yes, it has to do with, you want to talk about it? It's all electronics.
Pardon?
Smart home technology in the electrical field.
So what shop does that come out of?
It's electrical.
It's part of the, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Bianca. So with the, it seems like there is a decline in the completed applications that have been submitted. Do you, in your discussion, I heard you mention the short season. I know that before you and your team were thinking that with the lottery, there might be an increase in applications. So I'm wondering if on the other side, there are families thinking that a lottery might have worked against their chances, and if that was maybe a dissuading factor for them. And then, of course, the biggest thing I wonder, well, they're connected. The biggest thing I wonder about is declining enrollment in our sending districts, and the sort of urgency with which the sending communities are fighting to keep their students in district.
Mm-hmm.
So are those some of the things that you and your team have been talking about?
Absolutely. And anecdotally, several of us have heard from families who, because of the lottery, felt they were concerned about a culture change, and therefore they didn't apply. They were looking at it, the way it was shared with us, they were looking at it from the standpoint of, well, now anyone can get in,
right,
because it's random,
right,
and luck. I don't know that I want my child there. That was a low number, but anecdotally, several of us did hear that as a reason why they chose not to apply. But on the other side, we also had families share with us that they chose to apply because previously they thought their child may not have had an opportunity.
Right.
So I don't know if that's enough to cancel out,
Right.
if it's a wash. But we heard that to your question, we heard that in both directions. I do think we had, I think like 15 already was the number that Lauren shared with us that have come in after March 15th. So we're only March 24th. So by policy, those get put in a holding bin unless you work through your entire wait list. So that's directed by the state. Any applications that come in after the close of the application season get put aside, and then there would be a subsequent lottery if you roll through your entire wait list.
Right.
So that they still have an opportunity,
It's diminished.
even though they missed it, but
Yeah.
it's diminished because you have to wait to go through every single person that applied.
Can you remind me, and maybe you already said this, did we have rolling admissions before, or was there was a set deadline? Remind me.
So we did have, in a sense, rolling admission. So we continued to take applications, and that you would be added in as you applied.
Because the deadline would be a new factor for folks, for families.
Yeah,
The hard deadline.
Oh yeah, well, there always was a hard deadline. It was March 15th, and the state moved it to it was always March 15th for out of tuition.
Okay.
And the state really said that the latest you can go for any in or out of district or tuition or is 15th. So they sort of made it a hard deadline for every category. And I think that's because some of the things we've heard when we talked with DESE is they were really trying to make everything as uniform as possible so that students and families were not as confused.
Yeah.
Well, there's one deadline here and one there. However, they still kept the tuition application, so that actual contract that says that sending district will pay.
Yeah.
They still kept that at April 1st.
Gotcha.
But that's more on the district's end to get that completed in time.
Okay. Thank you.
Committee reports.
Yeah, the strategic planning subcommittee met just last Friday, March 20th, and on the agenda was an update on the stakeholder sessions that the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, or MARS, has been holding in our top sending communities, and a preview and discussion of the report that they'll be making to the full board at next month's meeting, which is in just a couple weeks, regarding the feasibility of regionalization. We invited Senator Comerford and Representative Sabadosa to attend the meeting, and they each sent a staff member. So in a nutshell, you'll hear more about this from Dr. Lincoln Hooker also, certainly in 2 weeks. There is almost no interest in regionalization among sending communities. This is probably not a surprise to anyone who follows the news and understands the fiscal and declining enrollment challenges they are facing, directly related. And in most cases, also related to their being rural districts, right, with the transportation costs added in as well. Even if we were to reach agreements with our top sending communities, there would still not be enough students to fill all of the seats. A number would have to come from out of district. So that's not typical for a regional district where all of your seats are filled by your member communities. Quite a few years ago, he can name the year, Dr. Lincoln Hooker put forward another approach to financing a new D building, and he thought it made sense to revisit it. And Mr. Oquadro and I agreed. It would not require a governance change. The idea is that Northampton would apply to MSBA, which would fund some of it. A one-time appropriation from the state legislature would fund some of it. We're a vocational school. We're the only Aggie west of 495. High interest in vocational education. We're different from other high schools. That's our thinking in terms of the state legislature, and certainly the governor's priorities, as she has made clear. And then Northampton would borrow the remaining amount, with 80% of it repaid using a capital assessment added to the out-of-district tuition rate per student. So again, this is Dr. Lincoln Hooker, who put this idea forward quite a while ago, and Mr. Oquadro, I think, thought it made sense to explore it. So you're going to hear the full MARS report in 2 weeks. I thought it was an excellent report, lots of information for us to consider, and well and clearly presented. And then I anticipate we'll have a full discussion then, which could include this other proposal. What's the date of that? April 7th.
Yes.
The policy subcommittee met on March 10th, where we briefed Mr. Aquadro, because he just joined the policy subcommittee, on the redundancy of the sick leave bank and hardship leave policy. So there's more to come on that. We're close to making a proposal to the full board on that. We also discussed the vocational program waitlist policy in order to add a new, I know it seems like a distant memory, in order to add a new protocol to admissions. Exploratory students who chose a shop as their number one, but they didn't get in, are immediately added to a wait list, and they're ranked by their exploratory rubric score. Many shops have ties, and so they'll run a lottery. A student can also add their name to any other shop's wait list after their number one choice. And if there's no wait list for a shop and a spot in the lottery, right? If there's no wait list for a shop and the spot opens up, an email will go out to all students and their families in that grade. And they have a 48-hour window to indicate if they'd like the spot. And if multiple students want it, then a lottery will be held. I believe this is the gist of the protocol that will be added to the admissions policy. So students and families are aware of it from the beginning, and they don't get into the exploratory process or at the end of it and then don't understand this how it works. But I invite Dr. Lincoln Hooker and Mr. Bianca to make any corrections or elaborations.
Did a great job. Yeah.
Great, good. That's it for committee.
Thank you. Facilities report.
It should be in your packets.
Oh, all right. Oh, yeah.
So really three topics. One is Mr. Smith is finalizing the bid documents for the demolishing of the former E-building, the former horticulture building. The hope is that once we get through the whole bid process and award the contract, we can actually begin to demo around May 4th, which would be a couple weeks after April vacation. The thought is leading into April vacation, there'll be some of the disconnecting of the network, which is going to lead us to lose internet down by the ag complex. But that's all prep work for then over April vacation. The contractor will be on site to finish that changeover. So then when we get back, we can finalize all the disconnects and then again, get rid of those problems in May, which would be great. So that's the first topic you see in his report. The second one is these door upgrades around campus. Unfortunately, as if you have a chance to go around campus, many doors don't necessarily close properly, and that increases a security risk. And a lot of times that's because of the door jams are malfunctioning. So as you can see in Mrs. Smith's report, just updating a lot of those frames to make them function more properly. And then lastly, just waiting patiently on the city with the capital improvement to see how that plays out, to see what projects will be funded.
Financial report?
Sure. Still working with Jesse on the non-resident tuition rate. We do have an estimated amount. I was hoping to receive an email this evening from them, and unfortunately I have not received it. The end of year audit for 25 is completed. The portion of the audit is enclosed. I received the final report yesterday, so I will include that with your packets next month. I will begin working with Mr. Aquadro on the Board of Trustees scholarships, so we can submit the list to the scholarship committee. An email was sent out just preparing everyone for open enrollment that will begin April 1st through May 1st. They are encouraging all members to enroll online with the GIC. Additionally, a vision plan has been added. They did not combine it with the dental. That would have made it cheaper, but unfortunately they didn't want to force people to have both coverages if they didn't need it. I've also included the comparison on the cost comparisons of the plans with the FY27 rates. NASBO has offered a pilot for school business administrators for multilingual learner considerations. They selected 25 people, and I'm happy to report I'm one of the 25. The pilot has started. The course will continue through the end of May. The third round of tuition invoices are complete. We're just making some final adjustments as we've received a few students that have left. I will report those numbers in April. The special ed invoices are also been submitted, and those are in preparation to be sent out to the districts. Looking at the expenses for this year, I'm just doing some forecasting. Again, one area of concern is electricity. We are currently, we budgeted 200,000 and we're currently at 201. So not sure where we'll end with that, considering this is the first year with the new horticulture building. So hopefully it doesn't go too much, but I will report next month as well.
Andy?
Can you say a little more about that course, please?
Sure. So it's just one of the license requirements for school business is the English learner portion as well. So this is, again, I think new because it's gearing it towards school business administrators. So unfortunately, yesterday was the first day. So it was just doing some introductions and looking at the syllabus.
So what will you be learning in the course?
The goal is to look at what other districts, some of the issues that they have with English learners, looking at different ways they address, their percentages compared to like, it's interesting because there's one, Nantucket is one of the school business administrators, and he's saying that they have a very high number of English learners, but unfortunately where they're located, the resources aren't there. So that's what I think we're going to get out of it, just looking to see what other districts, some of their challenges and how they've overcome them.
So how to best support our English learners
Absolutely.
on our campus.
Correct.
That's wonderful. Thank you for
It's pretty interesting.
applying for it, and congratulations on being chosen. And I hope you'll tell us more about what you learned.
I definitely. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, good evening. Before I get into the formal presentation, again, you should have a hard copy in front of you. It's on the smart board behind us. I just want to revisit my earlier comment about the DESE waiver around the admissions policy and begin connecting dots. Yes, it was a one-year waiver that was granted, which means this current admission cycle that Mr. Bianco was alluding to. I will share the actual letter at next month's board meeting because I think it's going to tie into the Mars report as well. And how these different conversations are beginning to blend in. As an example, Mars and myself, we agreed that part of the process, whether we're going to go down the path of regionalization or not, or the three-legged stool analogy that Dr. Spencer Robinson alluded to, that might be another approach to rebuild debuilding. No matter what path the board chooses, most likely at some point the commissioner of ed is going to have to be on board in support of whatever direction. And politically, I think everybody agrees that prior to a meeting with the commissioner, his or her staff need to be in support of this to help advocate. So the thought is we've already had 2 separate meetings, and you're going to hear this on April 7th with the Department of Ed's department around regionalization. We've had those meetings already. Now we felt it was time to have a meeting with the CTE department, the vocational department, and share with them what the discussions have been, what the direction is, and then hopefully they can then advocate as well to the commissioner. So we had an initial meeting planned yesterday. Unfortunately, I had to postpone that. We had a faculty meeting yesterday to talk about this evening's presentation. So that meeting was rescheduled to next Wednesday. So we're going to have that meeting next Wednesday with the CTE team in Mars, and I'm sure that's going to then play into that final report that you're going to hear on April 7th. The reason I'm bringing that up, back to the waiver with the admissions policy, the waiver specifically outlines one of the reasons why we were granted the waiver. DESE is still feeling that we're out of compliance with that one regulation. So I was arguing all year that we're not out of compliance, which is different. Our governance model is different. It's not that we're breaking a regulation. Unfortunately, that wasn't agreed upon, so they gave us a waiver. And the reason for the waiver is that they know we've been working with Mars in investigating regionalization. So I think the department was hoping that regionalization was the solution. And as you're hearing tonight, and you're going to hear more on April 7th, most likely that is not a solution. So in essence, it's sort of that old saying of kicking the can down the road. I think that's what happened. They bought us time this year so we can go through this admissions process, but we're going to be back at it next year. So to share that with the board. So with that said, more great news. Let's get into the budget. This presentation, 98% of it is the same presentation from last month. So you may see I'm going to skip through some slides that are relevant, but we already discussed it last month. So I don't want to take more time than is necessary. So I'll kind of go page by page, but we'll be kind of quick. For a lot of it, we know who most of us are. I do want to, the map, I just want to give credit where credit is due to both Ms. Fairman and Mr. Shear, creating a more clear map so you can see and hopefully read the names of the communities. So again, as a reminder, the yellow are all of the non-resident communities that we have students enrolled in this year.
Or green on our top page.
Is it green?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, and then the darker green, hopefully you all know that's Northampton.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yes.
He's colorblind. Good.
The demographics, I'm not going to get into too much detail. Population. I do just want to revisit the Western Mass Regional CTE comparison slides. Just at first slide, I think this may be a discussion point later this evening. Just as a reminder, we're looking at Smith, the top row, then it's Franklin County Tech, McCann Tech, and Pathfinder. Those are sort of the comparisons I look at on many different levels. And here, I just want to remind everybody, so you can easily read this data. Smith Folk, in parentheses, right below the school name, is the number of communities that particular school serves. So even though we don't have a regional agreement, right now we have about 64 different communities. So it's sort of an outlier.
Is there another district in the state that serves more communities than we do?
But the Aggies may,
Let's make
because
that a contest.
they have a within their county, okay, that's Bristol Aggie and Norfolk County, but then they also do technically serve communities outside. Essex Aggie, I've learned that Essex is quite complicated as well. As you know, it used to be two different vocational schools. There's an Aggie school and a traditional Voc school. They combined. Their admissions policy is so complicated, where the admission into the traditional Voc programs is based on, again, the regional agreement communities, okay? But their ag programs are more in line with us, which is it's all non-resident students. And they have to treat them as two different admissions policies. So it's complicated. But anyways, Franklin Tech, they have 19 communities. McCann Tech has 9. Pathfinder has 9. Below that, you see the number of vocational programs that each school offers. We have 15. Franklin Tech has 14. McCann has 10. Pathfinder has 16. Below that, you see that the average number of students per program. That's over the course of the four years. So our average is just about 39. Franklin Tech is 46. McCann Tech is 49. Pathfinder is 40. And if you want to do the math, you see probably a few columns in, you see the total enrollment. We were at 589. Franklin Tech is 647. McCann Tech is 491. Pathfinder is 647. So I just want to highlight that. That may be a discussion later tonight when we talk about budget. So anyways.
Would it be fair to say that Pathfinder has under-enrolled shops like we do?
I think it's fair to say that they all probably have under-enrolled shops.
Okay.
And that was a great comment yesterday within our faculty. I really do appreciate the time that we had with the faculty yesterday. It's not an easy mathematical equation. We bring in 150 students. We don't magically place 150 students evenly across 15 shops. And the same thing happens when you build a massive schedule on the academic side. You have 5 sections of algebra. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have the same number of students in each of the 5 sections. You may have one section that has close to 30. You may have another section that's 12. The same thing happens within the shop. So, and that's a challenge that we have to continue to weigh as we continue to increase enrollment. We don't necessarily automatically fill the lower enrolled shops. Sometimes there's just more interest in certain shops. And as we're hearing, not all the kids can get into particular shops. So then what happens? So I know that's a long-winded response, but
No, I appreciate
I
it.
think across the board, you're gonna see
Yeah.
shops that they have too much interest and other shops that are difficult to fill.
I appreciate it as well as a comparison to that on the academic side. Our funding model is different substantially different from the other two. So we're living maybe a little closer to the edge with our out of district tuition where they are funded by their member communities. Thank you.
You skip through several of these. Another slide I just want to add as a reminder, you're going to hear this number again later on, is the enrollment projections. It has sort of the 4 boxes in the 4 corners. So just as a reminder, we're in the upper left-hand corner right now. The big assumption is that you take that enrollment that we're in right now and you move over to the upper right-hand corner. So the current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, if they all get promoted, we simply just move those numbers down. And hypothetically, we bring in 150 new freshmen. So that's what you see in the upper right-hand corner. That means it would be an increased enrollment of 11 students over what we have right now. Okay, so 11, you're going to hear 11 later on when we start talking about the budget and the numbers. I just want the board to understand where that number comes from. Okay. Skip through a lot of these slides. Okay. I did on the enrollment vision, there's that chart that goes back to 1978. I think last month I was asked to add in sort of a line that represents that 680 student mark. So there it is, just for a visual, if that becomes relevant later on. The next slide, I do want to take a moment. This was not updated last month. I want the board to be aware of the Western Mass enrollment trends. I think Dr. Spencer Robinson, you sort of alluded to this fact earlier in the meeting. So what you're seeing here, the top section, that light blue, that's statewide numbers. And what you're looking at, this is the projection for next year's enrollment, 1st grade through 8th grade. Okay, so that's why you see the 1 through the 8. And then that percentage is the percent change between each grade. So as an example, if you went to the statewide, that's at the top, you see a -1% under the 7th grade. That means that's a 1% decrease from next year's 8th grade to 7th grade. And then from 6th to 7th grade, that's a drop of 1.46%. Okay, you can do that all the way down to 1st grade. Overall state enrollment trend between 8th grade and 1st grade statewide is a drop of just over 10%, which is scary statewide. But what gets more scary is when you start looking into the Western Mass counties, and this is sort of our catchment area, in Hampshire County specifically, that's the yellow. You can look, again, grade by grade, but what's really alarming is that 33, almost a 34% drop between next year's 8th grade enrollment and next year's 1st grade enrollment. So long term, how do we maintain sustainability when there's less students to drop from? That's sort of, and then the same thing happens in Hampden County, not quite as steep. Franklin County is over that course of 8th grade down to 1st grade, it's almost a 12% drop. In Berkshire County is almost an 8% drop.
Dr. Lincoln Hooker, I think of declining enrollment as a tsunami that's starting in Western Mass and rolling east. I was surprised, 34% in Hampshire County compared to 12 for Franklin County and 8 for Berkshire County. I thought, no, they've got to be higher than we are, but I'm like, oh, maybe they've already experienced.
Franklin County is ahead of the curve.
Yeah, both of those counties. And so it's like, it's going, down to Hampshire County, because that's a big number.
Yes.
And then it's going to slowly make its way east. So that state number will catch up. We'll just keep increasing.
Okay. The next several slides, I think, these are great news. It's sort of our vision around the ag programs. Always nice. We talked about this last month. The staffing, I just, again, want to thank the board for supporting the increase of staffing that we've had over the last several years. And you can see all the additional staff that we've hired because of the increased enrollment that we've been experiencing. So again, that's great news. It's worth patting you up on the back as a board and supporting the staff, which is great. The facility improvement vision, you can see all the things that we've been working on and completing over the last several years. Again, kudos to Mr. Smith and his team. Support from the board. Again, these are all areas that we've been able to improve, which really, I think, improves the learning environment for the students, makes this campus more attractive for the students to come and learn, but also equally important for the staff to come and work. And this list is multi-slides. There's just been a lot that's been happening on campus, so thank you. Then we get into the ad complex vision that we've talked about over the last several years. Again, great strides. A lot has been happening down the back. Okay, I'm not going to harp on that right now. And then D building, we know it's been a hot topic. So we get into the slide, budget forecast. And this is where we're going to take our time. The next slide is that 5-year budget comparison. And here we'll go slide by slide and take any questions I think as we go. So the first slide is a 5-year budget comparison. I shared this with the staff yesterday. The FY27 right now, our projected budget is $15.3 million. I want to say that is misleading, okay? And you can see sort of the italics at the bottom. That number includes all of the indirect costs that go back to the city. So 15 million is not what we as the leadership team look at to manage a budget. Okay, it's a lot less than that. So I just want the board to understand. I think it's a great data point. It's an accurate data point. You can see the increase from this current year. You can see the percent change. I try to break it down. The first student, trying to find apples to apples. What enrollment data point do I use? But I did the best of my ability. But again, big picture, overall, it's about a $15.3 million budget. And then we'll drill down a little bit later. You'll see what the actual munis number is, okay, in a little bit. Net school spending. As a reminder, this is sort of the funding formula for the students that we have from Northampton. There's no discussion about any students from outside of Northampton on this particular slide. As a quick reminder, net school spending, that's the minimum requirement that DESE sets to say that we have to educate our particular students from that particular community. The state sets that net school spending. So for us and our Northampton students, the net school spending, we're projecting to be about 4.3 million. And my analogy is that bucket. Okay, so you have this bucket called net school spending, and you have to fill that bucket. Well, the first amount of money that goes into that bucket is Chapter 70. That's the public money coming from the state. For us, that's about $970,000. That goes into the bucket first. And then Northampton's required to then fill that bucket the rest of the way. And that's that local contribution. So right now we're projecting the local contribution from Northampton for this coming year is about 3.9 million. Now, if you do the math, 3.9 million is more than we need to fill that bucket. It begins to overflow a little bit. And that actual amount is at 590,000, which is great. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. Okay. And then the next line begins to describe what goes into that number. So, and this is why I said that caveat in that previous slide, there's a lot of indirect costs that go back to the city. One example, health insurance. Okay. And then another example is the Schedule 19, all those direct costs that we get charged back. So all of those go into that figure. Any additional contributions go into that figure. And then lastly, the capital projects go into that figure. As a reminder, capital projects per state regulations, a city can count a capital project towards their contribution as long as that project is no more than $150,000. Okay. The philosophy behind that is, as you know, there's school buildings being built, and if the city or town were able to use the entire cost of that building towards net school spending, there would be no money for educating the kids. So that's why there's a cap there. I want the board to know and at least see the difference there. So the city is over net school spending by 590,000, but the city is giving us 629,000 in capital projects. If you do the math, the point is there's a gap there. Okay, without the capital projects, we're not meeting the net school spending. So that's why the capital projects are necessary so we can get to that threshold. You do the math, it's only about $30,000. So I want to say and put it out there right now for the record, the city is very, very close to meeting net school spending without the capital projects. And I want to go on record to say that because you're going to see later on, we're short with the budget. And I know people may say, well, why don't we just go back to the city and rather than some of these capital projects, just give us the money in the budget, okay? We're not talking about a lot of money. We're talking about $30,000, $40,000. That's still not going to solve the problem. And then from the city perspective, and I tried to explain it here on this particular slide, there's a different funding source, okay, and path for the city to give us money through the operating budget versus capital projects. And it gets very complicated if we were to try to get everything into the operating budget. It would make the life of the city even more difficult. So I respect where the city's at. The city's doing everything that they can, and hopefully we get the capital projects, which are necessary. Okay, I don't want to minimize the need for those capital projects. If the city doesn't give us money for that, it's got to come from somewhere. So from my vantage point, I appreciate what the city's doing with this slide.
I have a question, Dr. Lincoln-Hooker. So net school spending is $4,318,710,000 for Northampton's 120 students, which equals $35,989 per student. What is out of district tuition next year?
Next year, proposed 22.
You'll see it. It's in there.
Okay, a little bit over 22,000. So it's significantly higher per student for the Northampton students. And I'm thinking a couple things. One is that the capital expenses are built into the Northampton per pupil spending, which our out-of-district students don't pay. So if we were to add a capital assessment down the road for bigger projects, that would 100% be fair, because Northampton students are already paying that, or Northampton is already paying that for their students. And then I think the second differing factor is that we pay for the transportation of Northampton students, whereas our sending communities pay their own transportation on top of the 22,000. Are there other things that I'm missing, or those are maybe the main ones in terms of why the difference between the two?
But the other caveat is, again, the indirect costs that go back to the city. So you did the basic math.
Understood that, yeah.
If you recalculate how much money is actually from Northampton that's spent in the munis number.
We're not doing that with the second district.
Correct.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next slide is just graphically, I know this is the mayor's favorite slide, year in, year out. Basically, the chapter 70 for many, many years, it looks like it's going up, and it is going up, but you can change the scale of that chart and you can look over time. And the point is, chapter 70 really hasn't kept pace with the net school spending, which means there's a bigger contribution necessary from the city, which puts the city in a tighter bind. And then you can see our net school spending actually went down, for next fiscal year. A lot of that is tied back to enrollment. Because again, all these numbers are based on the enrollment of the previous October 1. Okay. And again, only for our Northampton students. So the next slide, if I can, last week, I tried to explain last week in a nutshell. Last Monday morning, Ms. Fairman came into my office and told me that we got the tuition number, which is great, from the state. Unfortunately, that number went down from this year's rate. So what you're seeing on this chart, okay, the FY27 bar that you see is much higher. Last Monday morning, it was actually flatlined, definitely went down a little bit, which caused a lot of ache.
Dismay.
And a lot of meetings and discussions of how we're going to close this gap, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Thursday rolls around, and 5 minutes before a leadership meeting to talk to the leadership team about this, Ms. Fairman comes back in my office and said, slight change of plans. So DESE had a miscalculation on their end. It's their fault. And I won't get into the details on what that mistake was, but they recalculated the tuition rate, and it was slightly better. It actually went up, as you can see.
Did they recalculate that due to pushback from?
Well, I want to give credit to Ms. Fairman. Without Ms. Fairman calling and asking, how is this happening, then there would be no change. So as they dug to try to explain to Ms. Fairman where this was coming from, they identified the issue. Yeah, they were miscalculating the enrollment number. They thought we had way more students than we actually have. So thank you again to Ms. Fairman
Great.
Picking the phone up multiple times. So this next slide, in a nutshell, kind of talks about the story of what happened. So last month, when I shared sort of the big picture budget with all of you, if you recall, I had charged Ms. Merriman and Mr. Bianca to assume a tuition rate increase of 4%. And let's build a budget around that assumption. With that assumption, we were looking at nearly a $19,000 deficit in the budget. That's what we were anticipating, and we're prepared to close that gap. And that 19,000 already included us looking at the extraordinary maintenance line and putting $0 in that line, which is a bad idea. Okay, as we all know, we have an aging campus. Fixing things costs a lot of money, but we said there's no money to go around. We need to put $0 in that. So that $0 still meant we were $19,000 short. The second fact I want the board to be aware of, we were also level funding most of the materials and supplies for the shops in the academic areas. As we all know, if you level fund something, in essence, it's a net loss. Okay, so we're giving a department the same amount of money next year that they had this year. We all know the cost of supplies and materials are going up. So that then at the end of the day, that means there's less material to then teach our students. So again, with those two assumptions, we were still $19,000 short. Monday morning rolls around, and we're told that the tuition rate did not go up 4%. It actually went down $12 per student. So we run the numbers, and we were looking at a deficit of $430,000 last Monday. And again, that still includes no money in extraordinary maintenance, and that included level funding of the materials and supplies. So we had a work cut out to figure out a way to present to the board how we're going to close a $430,000 deficit. And this is why I harped on it back on the Chapter 70 slide. Okay, people may say we can close that gap if we went back to the city and asked for more money. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so I just want that's why I made that point known. Thursday, we find out 5 minutes before my leadership meeting that that non-resident tuition rate actually went up $866 per student. That's a 3.99% increase. 3.99% is very close to the 4% I initially charged Mr. Bianca and Ms. Fairman to build a budget off. So we were spot on. So Thursday afternoon, we're back to where we started, okay? Which means we're looking at a $19,000 shortfall and no money in extraordinary maintenance and lower funding of materials and supplies. So we start having conversations. What direction do we want to go, okay? And that leads to, let's move to the next slide.
Can I just ask a question?
Of course.
So when you thought it was decreased by $12 per student, how do you get to 433? So how many students? So those are just the non-resident students. So even if it was like 600 times 12, that's not $430,000. So how does that deficit become that?
Yep.
Oh, she just, because you're multiplying the $12 times 455.
Right.
But then all of the, Andy's gonna talk about it, it's all of the increases that are contractual and others. When you get the number that it takes to fund.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand if the 4% increase was gonna leave that deficit. So I guess I would have to understand what the percent decrease was to then be able to get to there.
Right. So basically, 1% is about 100,000, give or
Okay.
take, what it's costing us.
Okay. So it's not the $12, I get it.
Okay. So the next slide, this is more as a reminder for the board as we begin to talk about solutions. This is why I focus on that enrollment trend of 11 additional students. So as a reminder, this coming year is that last year. Unless we change the admissions policy to bring in more students, this is the last year that we anticipate any type of increase, and there's that 11 students. So we can anticipate a max of 11 additional students this coming year. So how do we want to include that in the budget, okay, or not? That's a discussion that we need to have as a board. And again, an alternative way to find a solution around that is we just change the admissions policy and we bring in more kids. I shared this hypothetical last month. I shared this with the staff, and this kind of goes back to that Western Mass Folk School comparison slide. okay? Looking at how many students we have, how many shops that we have, are we overprescribed? And I just want to remind the board that if we were following the average enrollment trends of the other Western Mass folk schools, okay, we would have 680 students here on campus, okay, just using that average. If we had 680 students, so if we had an additional 80 non-resident students, we wouldn't take them from Northampton hypothetically, okay? Those 80 additional non-resident students would bring in over $1.7 million more into our budget, okay? So it's just a point of conversation. We're talking about difficult times here. If we were more in line with what our neighbors are doing, would we be in this financial strait that we're in right now? I just share that as a point of reference.
And I would just add one caveat from my position that I wouldn't endorse having, if we increase enrollment, having that increase come only from the sending communities. I don't think it would be fair to Northampton. I would want to see Northampton have access to more students, more seats for their students, as well as the set. So I would make that number proportionally lower to reflect the Northampton component there.
I think Northampton would want to be at the table to have that conversation. There might be a different perspective on that, but I understand.
Yeah, just speaking for myself.
Yes.
We're going to be competing for students.
Understood. Yeah.
Okay. So this next slide, this is where we really get into that munis number and what we're really looking at. It's the headline is budget highlights, headwinds, initial FY27 budget. So once we deal with the chargebacks to the city, okay, we end up with the munis operating budget line. And if we assume the same enrollment as this school year, we're looking at a 3.93% increase in the budget from this current year to next year. Why am I talking about the same number of students? Okay, as I just mentioned, we may have more kids. We may have 11 additional kids. Why would we build a budget, assuming the same number of non-resident students? So I try to explain that here. This fiscal year, this school year, we actually did not bring in the number of students that we had budgeted for non-resident. Okay, we were short. We were close, but we didn't quite get there. That's a problem. We've always tried to be conservative. We've always tried to build a budget where we knew we could at least bring in that number of non-resident students. Ideally, we bring in more than what we budgeted, and that surplus then goes into the tuition revolving account. Okay, this school year we did not do that. Okay, so last year we were having these conversations. We thought, we could increase that number. We probably could meet it, but we didn't do it. So from that vantage point, I would be recommending that we stay at that number, the number of non-resident students, to ensure that we at least hit that threshold. The other reason is, Dr. Spencer Robinson, you mentioned the Northampton transportation contract. Okay, as a reminder, yes, we have to pay that contract to transport the Northampton kids here. That contract, to pay for that, we can't pay that out of the operating budget. That money comes from the tuition revolving account. If you do the math, what that contract is, it takes approximately 8 non-resident students. The tuition for those 8 kids, we need to get into tuition revolving to then pay for that contract for the Northampton students. So you can connect the dots. This year, we didn't bring in enough students to meet the budget, which means we obviously didn't bring in enough students to then pay that Northampton contract, which means we took more out of tuition revolving, that revolving account to then pay for that contract. That's a problem, okay? So we have to stop that trend. Another reminder, and this is not mismanagement, this has just been back to all the capital projects that we've been working on. We know with the horticulture building, all the animal science and ag complex renovations, the $600,000 that we took out of tuition revolving to do a lot of this construction. As a reminder, the tuition revolving account, for many, many years, that balance was always north of $2 million. As of February, it's about $800,000. So we're going in the wrong direction. Good reason, we've been investing in the campus, but we're getting to the point where if we don't bring in the number of non-resident students that we budgeted, so that shortfall is going to continue to dig into that revolving account, which is not good practice. Which is back to why I would be recommending, unless we change the admissions policy, let's build a budget that is assuming the same number of non-resident students. With the increased enrollment, I think we have a better shot of getting over that threshold.
Can you say why the transportation for Northampton can't come out of the operating budget?
DESI does not count it towards net school spending.
Okay, got it, thank you.
The other headwind, and this is not directly pertaining to our operating budget, but you'll see sort of, we're going to allude to it a little bit later, is a potential impact around federal funding in the grants. So specifically, as this example is Title I, we are being told to anticipate a 25% reduction in our Title I federal money. You may ask, well, what do we get with Title I? A lot of our PD, professional development, comes from Title I, and also some of our staff. We cover in that particular grant, and that's a lot of our paraprofessional staff to support our students with IEPs. So if we lose some of that Title I money, then how do we deal with PD and how do we deal with some of the personnel? And we'll have to account for that and figure that out.
Is Title I in the grants anticipated line of the revenue?
No, not in the 12 million, no.
Okay. So again, we have to plan on that. So Thursday, Friday, today, Monday, today, they're meeting with the leadership team, and I'm in a position where I don't want every single year to stand in front of the board and say, how do we close the gap? How do we close the gap? How do we close the gap? We see this coming. Unfortunately, you open up the newspaper, all of our colleagues are struggling even at a higher rate than we are. Many of our communities are off that fiscal cliff. They're falling. We haven't fallen. Last Monday, I felt like we were falling. Okay. Thursday, we got our hands back on the edge of the cliff. We're not falling yet. Our hope is to prevent us from falling over the next 3 to 5 years. So our feeling is that there's actually an opportunity. So through this, I don't want to call it an exercise, but through the conversations and trying to figure out how do we close a potential $430,000 shortfall, is there a way to spin that and say, how can we be more sustainable with those same conversations? Is there a way to build this budget that we can begin to rebuild what we've had to be more sustainable over the next 3 to 5 years? So that's where we're at, and that's what I want to share with the board tonight. The priorities that we're looking at, again, how do we avoid that fiscal cliff? How do we reinvest in the tuition revolving account and start getting money back into that account? How do we ensure that the extraordinary maintenance line is funded, at least to some level? I think it's just poor practice if we don't, and then things break, how are we going to fix it? And obviously, this probably should be number one, how do we minimize the student learning impacts? Okay. If we fund the extraordinary maintenance at $100,000, that sounds like a lot of money. I shared that with the staff yesterday. $100,000 is a 27% reduction from this year. And we blew through that budget this year. Okay, so I just share that for what it's worth. But let's just say for a starting point, we put $100,000 back into the budget for that particular line. And secondly, we look at utilities. I don't even want to talk about the electric bill. It's through the roof, and we're always over budget with that. If we try to budget some of our utilities closer to actual costs, okay, let's build that up a little bit so we're better projecting those costs. We're looking at a deficit of $148,789. Okay, so that $19,000 deficit has grown to that deficit, assuming we put money back into extraordinary maintenance and we up our utility line budgets. So the idea is, the goal is, how do I close $149,000? Okay.
Can you give us one or two examples of extraordinary maintenance expenses from this year to refresh our memories?
Painting auto body, painting the inside. Last year was painting ag mech. I'm sorry, Jeff.
That's all right. We had pipes freeze in C building, and we flooded 2 classrooms. So those unit vents had to be reworked, and then we found out that one of the boilers in the building that's supposed to be running the backup heat to the mini splits had failed. And the reason that we hadn't caught it was because of the mini splits. But then when we hit that cold spell, everything blew. So, those are examples of what you don't anticipate.
So if something like that were to happen this fiscal year, do we say, sorry, you've got a flooded classroom? Where does the money come from?
If we don't fund this, I'd be standing in front of the board asking for us to take money out of tuition revolving. That's our only other option.
Right, because if the line's at zero and something like that happens, and the painting is pretty much priority, I mean, it's a learning environment, and it's gonna get to a certain point where it's like, it has to be painted. It comes out of that, because that, you can't say, we're gonna live with this. I mean, maybe the painting can, but not something like that.
Why couldn't something like paint be, have been in the capital plan? Like that, was that an unanticipated?
Some of the capital, I thought it was more towards, I think we placed the higher priorities in the capital plan. And some of the smaller things that we thought that we could accomplish in correct.
But if it's something that could have waited till next year's capital plan. Possibility.
Right, it would be another solution.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is the last slide, it's probably the slide I want the most conversation and some direction. So again, I know I am charged to bring an actual budget to you next month, April 7th, that you have to vote on. You see that right now we're looking at approximately $149,000 deficit, have to close that deficit. And again, that's assuming $100,000 in extraordinary minutes. That could go up and down. Anything could go up and down under the direction of the board. So as I mentioned to the staff yesterday, we talked about it here at the board. There's really two ways to balance a budget. You either make more money or you cut your spending. So on the increased revenue side, how do we bring more money in? Here are some ideas, and I'll give a sort of a global overview. I'll answer any questions, okay? The first one, and this is not a priority list. This is not a rank order, okay? This is simply just ideas. So I don't want you to misread it. Instituting student fees. There's precedent out there, okay? Many school districts will have various student fees. One could be athletic fees, user fees to play sports. Another one may be parking fees for student drivers to park on school grounds. Another one could be a bus fee if you ride the bus. So there's different models out there that we could charge students and families a user fee.
When currently we don't charge anything at all, correct?
Correct. However, when you look at our demographics, depending on what type of user fee you want to entertain, athletic user fees, as an example, the board would have to create a policy around how do we handle the potential cap. So many schools would have a cap if you play multiple sports, or family cap if you have multiple children. You also have to have some type of sliding scale if you have a family with low income. You can't charge the same rate. So it gets quite complicated. And that's just specifically the athletic user fees. Parking fees could be a little bit more black and white. And the alternative would be a family, if they don't want to pay the parking fee, they could hop on the bus. So there's ways around that. So again, just some examples around student fees. The second one, review indirect costs related to adult ed. And this goes back specifically to the utilities. As we know, adult ed, they're doing an amazing job. But they use this campus when we're done. But when they use the campus, the lights are still on, the heat's, all the utilities are still racking up. So the potential here is that we sit down with adult ed and we come up with an agreement. Okay, what that agreement may be, whether it's a percentage or just a flat rate, but there would be an offset. So adult ed would help cover some of the utility costs. And that flow would be that money coming from adult ed would go directly into the tuition revolving account. So that's what that line is, what we're sort of brainstorming.
So currently they don't share. So what do we get from adult ed in terms of fees?
For the operating budget, it's separate. So when Lorena reports her financials, that is staying with adult ed at this point. They have done, full transparency, we have used adult ed monies to help support some of the upgrades in some of the shops. So as an example, in AgMech, we received a grant to redo all the welding equipment, but the electrical infrastructure that had to be upgraded, adult ed paid for that because they also use the welder. So there's definitely a sharing of shop improvement, but just the basic overhead, there's been no sharing.
It's rent free.
Correct. And
it increases our costs.
Ovens and stoves, are like when machines are, the kinds of machines we have, I imagine that adds to the electric.
Now, speaking of rent, we have found through the CTI grants that Lorena is able to get. We talked about the culinary program that they have is part of the CTI grant. These grants do allow like a rental charge. So we are going to begin to build those in to help offset some of these costs. But,
Okay.
So anyways, that's what that bullet is. I think it's worthwhile exploring. And then the last one, obviously, we've alluded to it. We look at the admissions policy and does the board want to entertain increasing the allowable number of students to come in? I know in the past, valid questions from the board was, how many can we take, without negatively impacting the academic experience? Some great questions and comments came out of our staff yesterday. Again, part of what happens if we overload incoming freshmen, we're already struggling trying to figure out the overly popular shops and what happens with wait lists. If students are getting to shops that they don't want to get into, do we lose those students? Do they go back to the sending districts? So it is complicated that freshman year, and it may be very complicated if we begin to take on more students. Okay, but there might be an alternative if the board wants to entertain, and I want to give full credit to Mr. Bianca, brainstorming this after the feedback from the staff yesterday, is that perhaps we don't want to necessarily look at the incoming freshman class and increasing that enrollment. Let's maybe keep that at 150. Let's get through the exploratory process. Let's get through the shop placement. And then the incoming sophomore year, at that point, we know some of the shops that have openings. And perhaps we want to increase the allowable number for the sophomore class, go from 150 to 155. At that point, new students coming in, they know the shops that have openings. And if they're accepted, they're going in eyes wide open. I'm going into a particular shop. I know it. There's an opening. And maybe we minimize some of that fallout that we experienced with the freshman class. So I just share that for food for thought.
How close are we to capacity on the academic side in terms of available seats?
So freshman year, and Ms. Bianca, I think you have the data here. We've talked a lot about freshman year. If we brought in more freshmen, one of the complications is that first period with the additional math class, English class, PE classes. That would be the biggest strain for our freshmen. Sophomore year, there's some more flexibility if you want to comment on the sophomore year option.
Yeah, I mean, on sophomore year, there's we have a few more. That's where we start to build in electives. So you're going to see more of a diffusement of the students as they came in. It would still impact the first period math class that we have at a minimum. But right now, if you did 5, you're adding an average less like 0.8 into that first period class. So on average, it should be absorbed. What is the actual number? I think if any of us sat here and said we know what the actual number is that we could absorb, I don't think you're telling the truth. I don't think we really know, and we can make guesses or ranges.
Because of all the variables.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables, so I think there's range there, and if that's why I think down the line, if we begin to bring in more students, it's really got to be a gradual step-in process so that we can assess that tension and where the strain is.
This one comes to schedule.
All right.
Yeah.
Explain how you would increase the sophomore class.
So the admissions policy, great question. The admissions policy states we can bring 150 students in every freshman class, which then means hypothetically the sophomore class should be 150, okay? But most likely we've lost a few students freshman year. So we're already trying to admit new incoming sophomores to fill that 150 slot for the sophomore class. We could put in a policy that sophomore year we can expand to 155, pick a number. So if we're entering sophomore year, maybe 145 students because we lost 5 kids freshman year, we're already looking for 5 students to get back to 150. But if that policy says, no, we'll grow to 155 for the sophomore year, we have 145, we can bring in 10 new students sophomore year. It's just increasing that ceiling for the sophomore year.
And we already publicized we have openings in the following shops. So we'd only be, the only openings would be for shops that didn't fill the 12. So the concern about how do we begin bringing in students to fill the under-enrolled shops, this would be a method of doing that.
So it's still not clear. So they would come in, a new student would come in as a sophomore.
Yes.
He transferred after ninth grade.
That's
I mean, it's half a year, but it wasn't so much that it was hard for him to catch up.
right. All right.
And 10th grade is, after 10th grade, you can't come to
We do allow the beginning of junior year. It gets more complicated, obviously. But technically, a new student who starts junior year, they are on pace to earn the Chapter 74 certificate. They run the risk of not being co-op eligible. And they run the risk of other things as well. But
Because they need a certain number of hours in their shops in order to graduate.
to get that Chapter 74
Yeah,
certificate,
right.
yes. So, anyways, that's the admissions policy info. On the flip side of the equation, decreasing of expenses, I'll run through these. One is to review and potentially eliminate or reduce under-enrolled athletic programs and clubs. I think it's a fair assessment that perhaps we have a lot of athletic offerings for the student enrollment that we have. Okay, and in working with Mrs. Sabonis, the athletic director, we could identify some of those offerings and maybe cut them back. And there'd be a savings there.
From the stipends.
Yes, the coaches' stipends,
Oh, and
the
transportation.
uniforms,
Right.
the transportation, officials' costs. I mean, it adds up. The next one, again, is athletic related, and this is looking at the co-op agreements that we have. And not to get into the weeds and specifically talking about one particular co-op, but in theory, in practice, we might be the host school for a co-op, but we may be a guest part of the co-op where we host the sport or our students go to another school. In one example, we are the guest, and that particular host school charges us. They broke down all the costs, and I'm talking in great detail, almost like a Schedule 19 model. Great detail that they charge us for our students to participate. And it works out to be just over $1,000 per student athlete that we have, that we send over there, and we cover that cost. There's another co-op that we happen to be the host of with the same school. Now they're the guest and we're the host, and we charge them nothing. Okay. Back to that original example that when we're the guest, we're being charged over $1,000 per student. That school has athletic user fees that they charge their students. So that student and the family is paying $325 to participate in that same sport. We're paying $1,000 for that same athlete to play on that same team. Now, our students aren't paying the athletic fees, but we are. So sort of the discussion that we're having at the leadership team is, do we review some of these co-op agreements, whether we have to begin to charge the guest schools, or is there a way in that particular example, we can cover the cost of the athletic fees, so it's apples to apples. And that would be a savings of $700 per student athlete. So that's where that's coming from. Let's review those agreements and make sure that we're fair and consistent across the board.
Certainly seems fair if that one school is charging us that, and they understand all the additional costs for our students to be there, that we could do the same.
Exactly. So we'll work on that. So that's on the table. The review materials and supplies, I'm not necessarily advocating that we decrease. This is more of a reminder that, again, we're already level funding all of those lines. Okay. My recommendation is that if we're able to become more sustainable, we actually begin to increase some of those lines to more of a level services amount to ensure that the shops in the academic areas have at least the same amount of material and supplies to teach the students. Would be my recommendation. Under personnel, again, not necessarily a priority list ranking order. Under administrative and clerical, a couple different mindsets. And I want to begin, you see under personnel, it says prioritize through attrition. Ideally, if we have to look at personnel, ideally, my wish would be not to lay people off. Is there a way through attrition, people naturally leaving, people retiring, is there a way to look at those positions and not fill them if we're forced to not to lay people, not lay people, but to reduce the staff. So with that mindset, looking at administration and clerical staff, the administrative example that we've discussed would be the Mrs. Smith. We've talked about it. Okay, Mrs. Smith is retiring over the summer. The goal is to split that position into a facilities director and a farm director, to be 2 full-time administrators. With the budget, is this the right time to do the split? Or do we try to maintain that position the way we've been maintaining it, which has been difficult? Okay, how do we find the next Tim Smith that is a facilities director and a farm director? Or how do we find a facilities director and then deal with our farm tech model with the lead? So it's there. I'm not saying it's the right decision or not, but that's out there. The clerical staff would be looking at, is there a way for us to restructure our clerical staff? I would say that particular example, it may not be attrition. That would be one that if we went down that road, it could be a layoff and it could be unemployment. And again, cost of unemployment, we try to avoid as well, okay? But it's out there. Instructional staff, this is one area where if we were to look at the staffing, we might be able to reduce through attrition. We know of retirements, and there might be a way to cut back that way, okay? And then lastly, support staff. I put support staff on the list, not necessarily for us to target. This is more of a function of that Title I reduction potentially, okay? So if we're losing Title I funds, we have to review all the staff that are either in the operating budget and or within the grant, figure out what do we need to provide the services for our students, what can we manage within the operating budget and what do we lose? So that's sort of where that discussion is going. Now, again, what I'm really asking for the board is, this is a lot, okay? Some rough numbers, if we were to do all of this, we're looking at over $400,000, a combination of increased revenue, decreased expenses. And again, as a reminder, we're $449,000 short if we have some money in extraordinary maintenance. So this list is way above and beyond what we need, okay? But at this point, I'll open up to the board. My hope is that there's some direction, there's some priorities, there's some, hey, administration, do not touch this, this, and this. Some ideas, so when we come back on April 7th, I am presenting a budget that follows, the guidance and the leadership of the board. So questions, thoughts, concerns?
Just to understand our charge, you want us to address that $149,000 deficit, ideally. You'd like us to get to that number?
I don't need 449,000 ballpark.
Say that again?
It's like 449,000.
449?
I'm sorry, 149,000.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was,
okay.
how did
So-
we get back to the
That's
400?
my problem.
Okay, thank you.
That was a joke. Yeah.
All right, so
So-
149.
149, that's your goal for us, is to guide
And this list gets us beyond the
to
400,
400.
Right.
which we don't need to go that
Right.
far. Yeah.
Meaning the increased revenue, decreased expenses, so you have some type of,
Some guidance,
no, you have some type of vision already on increased revenue?
Well, he walked us through all this.
Yeah, I see the idea, so in institute student fees, for instance, what did you,
Athletic and parking. Athletic fees and parking fees.
When you were on the
no, I was here for that.
Okay.
So you just
Which I
come
say,
up with some
which I say,
type of value?
I say don't increase student fees.
Yeah, we're not,
Because for me, the athletics, sorry, Dr. Bonner, are a draw to I know for sure our Northampton students, when I
yeah,
was
back in the
teaching,
day, there wasn't one.
when I was teaching, they would go to Northampton High School because they wanted football, so now the football program, that's one example. So I feel like our strong athletic programs are a draw for students, and
Definitely.
the institute fees, that is another barrier to student participation in that. And I think the parking it's kind of a class thing. It also seems really minimal, and it impacts students. I do really support the idea in the athletic realm of reducing the under-enrolled programs and clubs, so the sports and the clubs, the ones that have lower enrollment, yes, because of the cost attached to that. I definitely support the indirect costs related to adult ed. I think I've made clear that indirect costs that we pay to UMass anytime we get, it's close to, it's a lot of money. So yes, indirect costs, building those into the adult ed budget.
That's
I'm not
it.
sure about the updating admissions. I'm open to adding 5 students to the sophomore class and send up a trial balloon. see how that works.
How it works, yeah.
Definitely negotiate new co-op agreements, yes, please. See how much money we can get out of that. I agree with you. I'd like to see the supplies, materials and supplies line item be level service, not, so it's not, I don't think it's a lot of money in the budget, and yeah, everything is so much more expensive, and again, it impacts students. In terms of the personnel, I mean, the sticking point for me with splitting Tim's position into two is that look at the vision for the agricultural program. I mean, it's glorious, and what we have already accomplished under your leadership is impressive and exciting and inspiring, and what lies ahead. And that's a lot more work to have one person do, like, support the vision of growing that program, which makes sense financially for us as well, of course, as educationally, right? To have one person do all that, it doesn't make sense.
You're gonna burn that person out.
Instructional staff, I know from my experience with school budgets and with colleagues that, the educators who are close, from myself, when I was close to retirement, I was one of the most expensive teachers in the district. And so when I left, they could replace me with someone much cheaper, right? But to eliminate retirement positions, that's got to be probably, are over $100,000 per position potentially, depending on it. But anyway, so I would consider looking at that depending on which positions and which shops and how it impacted the student experience. And the support staff, look at our numbers and, special education and, socioeconomic disabilities, see if we need that support.
Tough choices.
I want to compliment you and faculty and your support staff here. You key people that have identified all this, that there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, is a lot of hard decisions that are going to have to be made in some cases. I think that the whole staff has to see the big picture, and this is what we're doing. We're blowing it up so that everybody can see it, and I compliment you for that. But I think we are the #1 voc tech school in Western Massachusetts. We are in a leadership role, and teachers want to come here. Teachers stay here. We already know that we put in programs to take care of them for staying. And so I think we've done we've done a lot of positive things. And I think what we're doing here is we're going to pull it through the garden hose to get out the other end. But the thing is, we can do it, and we're going to do it well. And I want you to know, or I feel, that the board is supporting these ideas, and any more ideas that come up through your staff and others are important. I think what it's also done is things that we haven't charged for in the past. This is an opportunity to exercise that, to help relieve some of the expenses. If I don't see in the national picture of the government, like Ronald Reagan said, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." That's not going to happen. And the thing is that we have to build a functioning budget,
Sustainable budget.
sustainable, reliable, that we can, look at everybody in the eye and say, we've done the best. This is it. This is what it's going to be. And people will respect it. I think that's my bottom line. People will respect the hard work that's going to go into this. And I'm glad to see that the state did step up with some numbers, and you're able to sleep a little better at night. And that's great. That's great. But I think your explanation tonight, and I know we got to present something to the mayor April 7th, but I want to again compliment the whole staff for the hard work that's being put into this.
I really like the idea of increasing sophomores because I feel like it's something that we've been looking at and thinking about. But it also, you know, helps with those shops that could have some extra kids in it. So it helps us explore what that looks like and how it feels, but also, you know, solve some other issues potentially.
Any other feedback? So what I'm hearing is, I just want to make sure we're providing a budget to the board to vote on, because at the end of the day, the budget, you have to own the budget as well, you know, as a locally elected official. I'm not hearing much of an appetite to pursue the student fees.
Agreed.
I am hearing that we need to investigate the adult ed indirectly, come up with an agreement.
Agreed.
I'm hearing some consensus around looking at the admissions policy, perhaps for a sophomore year.
Agreed.
I'm looking at, yes, we review the under-enrolled athletic programs. Maybe there's a way to cut back there. Reviewing those athletic co-ops that we mentioned, we can review that. I'm hearing
Now,
consensus.
hold on, explain that part.
So yes,
The athletic co-op program.
yes.
Like,
So
for instance, hockey with East Hampton.
yes, that's one example.
Okay.
So why this is on the list, as we were reviewing the co-op agreements, sometimes we are a host, which means the kids come to us and we, you know, they wear the Smith uniform, and other times we're the guest, so we go there. There are some agreements, one in particular that the host school itemizes all of these costs and they charge us that amount. That works out to be about $1,000 per athlete that we send over there. That particular school institutes an athletic user fee that their athletes have to pay. That's $325. So their kids are paying $325 to participate. We're covering the cost for our students at over $1,000. That same agreement, fast forward, we are now a host. That same school comes to us and we don't charge them anything. So what we're looking at here is
more than generous.
It's not reciprocal.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Right.
whether we become reciprocal is one way, or we just sit down with that one particular co-op agreement and say, it doesn't make sense that we're paying all of
Doesn't work.
this.
Doesn't work for us.
Let's rework. So just empowering us to have those conversations to try to rework some of those
Okay.
co-op agreements. So that's what that line is.
Yeah.
The materials and supplies, I'm hearing consensus that if there's a way for us to increase those lines to be more level services, or our shops and our academics can have at least what they're normally having. Personnel, I'm hearing the administrative position, clerical staff, and I didn't hear a whole lot about the clerical staff, but the administrative position, that Tim Smith replacement may not be the best idea. I'm hearing instructional staff, if there's a way to minimize unemployment, if we review truly what's happening within the academic or shop area, that might be viable. And support staff, I think there's consensus that we don't want to touch that. That might be the grant discussion. Any other ideas? I appreciate the guys.
Well, you have prioritized through attrition, meaning if somebody's leaving, not necessarily fill.
Correct. And that saves, the big savings there is not only the salary Dr. Spencer Robinson mentioned,
The height.
but also it's the unemployment that we've saved.